Hello friends, in the lecture today we'll talk about Hindi cinema and Raj Kapoor. In the earlier lecture on Raj Kapoor we talked about the initial films which were made by him, the kind of sensibility and the aesthetics which was reflected in the cinema of Raj Kapoor, the way he was being recognized by the film industry, and how his films they became very popular, and many of the films they were commercial blockbusters as well. We also see that how there was the concern of societal norms or the value systems. They were also reflected in the films of Raj Kapoor, and we also find that the issue of nation building, which was very important after independence, was also reflected in the cinema which was made by Raj Kapoor. And some of his earlier films like Barsat or Awara, which was made in 1951, which was written by K. Abbas, which deal with the issue of heredity and environment debate. And we also find that he also produced Boot Polish as well, which was trying to communicate the plight of children, those who are into Bagri. And so this was also reflective of another neorealist film called Shoe Shine, which was made in Italy. So some kind of resemblance between Shoe Shine and Boot Polish could be seen when we see both these pictures. So in a way, Raj Kapoor was also trying to make his film in a neorealist aesthetic of which was there in Italian cinema of 1940s and 1950s as well. And when we try to understand the cinema of those times, we find that how the films which were made by Raj Kapoor, they were also he was also taking his films abroad, how his films they were being liked in Russia, China and other regions as well. So in this way, some kind of a cultural exchange of was also taking place, and Indian culture was also going abroad in that sense. And when we talk about as I told you, the idea of nation building, so this kind of a thing where in a film called Boot Polish we see that how the children they are being adopted by a well-to-do family finally, and they are enrolled in a school which is referred to as New India or Nav Bharat. So the scholars they also have tried to understand the cinema of Raj Kapoor, and Chidanand Das Gupta, he says that Awara sought to establish the individual's democratic right to an identity of his own, independent of class and privilege, and protested against the glorification of heredity. The other scholars they have tried to see the cinema of Raj Kapoor and they convey, for example, that how the poster of Awara, when it claims that criminals are not born, they are being made. So it is emphasizing the heredity and the environment debate on which the film is based. And scholars like Punita Bhatt, they say that the two worlds of Raj and Nargis, they are separated not just by a moral chasm but by a real societal world as well. So we find that this idea of class consciousness which was there in Awara at that point of time, but it was also being reflected in certain individuals, because Prithviraj Kapoor's irrational attitude and the prejudiced way of thinking was also in a way remnant of the colonial perception towards the natives. So the elite, the way they were trying to see the ordinary members of the society, and through in a way that they were irrational at many points of time, and they also carried some kind of a prejudice. So that was during the times of the British rule as well, that how British they in a way had this kind of a perspective or perception towards the natives as well. So we find that when finally when the film ends, and how Raj Kapoor talks about in the court, and he asks the society to wake up and to save the youth from becoming the juvenile delinquents, and how some kind of an environment where the basic needs of the young children they are being met, and how these young children they are to be provided the kind of support which is needed at their young age. And this will in a way prevent them from becoming the juvenile delinquents. And we find that how Raj Kapoor's cinema was also some kind of a satire on society as well. In certain films we find that, for example, Jaagte Raho in 1954, he is trying to depict corruption, hypocrisy, selfishness and closeness which is there in the society. And magazines like Film India, they communicate that the apartments and the residents of those apartments, they symbolize the modern society, the structure of hypocrisy, and suitable title asking sleeping society to keep awake. So Jaagte Raho is in a way trying to ask the society that the society should be awake, and all sorts of things which are happening in the society which are negative in nature, for example the corruption or the closeness or the selfishness, they should be removed from the society. So it in a way is trying to communicate the kind of contradictions which are there in the society, and how the consciousness of the masses it is to be raised at different levels. We also find that there was a film called Shri 420 in which Raj Kapoor and Nargis, they acted, and number 420 is the section 420 of the Indian Penal Code, which prescribes the punishment for cheating. And the film centers on Raj Kapoor, who is a poor person, but he is educated as well, and who comes to Bombay with some kind of a dream for achieving the success. And his character was influenced by the Charlie Chaplin's Little Tramp, and we find that in the film he is in love with poor but virtuous Vidya, the role played by Nargis. And when Raj Kapoor engages in some kind of a trickery, because he is good at card playing, and how the negative forces in a way attract him, and he engages in that sense that he engages himself with some sort of a temptress, the role being played by Nadira, who is referred to as Maya in the film. So this kind of a juxtaposition between Vidya and Maya, where Vidya is knowledge and Maya is the kind of wealth which is there. So Maya becomes some sort of an illusion in that sense, and Raj Kapoor himself is playing the part where he has some kind of a confused morality, and he is after success, and he in a way wants that some kind of lifestyle which should come to him. And finally in the end he realizes that he does not have to involve in any kind of immoral activities to achieve any kind of a success. So in this particular film as well, we find that how a city is being seen as some sort of a place where urban deceit is there, and some kind of an ambivalence is there, and pessimism and decay is noticeable in the city, and how there is some kind of an attraction for the urban centers and metropolitan in the films as well. So how people, they migrate to the cities, and how the city life has all those kinds of values or the value systems which are in a way totally different from the value systems which are there in the rural spaces. So city as a place where people, those who will go to the city, they will decay in that sense, they will lose their morality, and they will engage in some kind of a deceit and pessimism. So all these kinds of things, they are also being in a way conveyed in the film. We also find that how Raj Kapoor's stylistic which has been used by him was in a way some kind of a neorealism, as has been talked about by Kishore Valicha, and we see that how this kind of a deglamorized representation of images, they were in a way purposeful and meaningful in nature. and though his films you will find that there are a lot of melodramatic moments, but the way he was sincere in attacking a hypocritical society cannot be questioned that way. So we find that this film called Jaagte Raho was trying to convey this kind of an idea, and when we tend to understand other films of Raj Kapoor, where we find, for example, Jaagte Raho itself, we find that how women they are being reduced by men to a degraded position. That has been talked about, that has been conveyed through various scenes in the film, that how the patriarchal authority which is exhibited by a drunkard who is shamefully demanding and also cruel towards his wife could also be seen. So we find that the unrelenting attitude is being exemplified by his repeated persuasion and the posturing to reduce his wife as a mere puppet in this particular film. And another kind of an instance where such kind of an attitude is in a way shown in this film, where a gambler who is trying to steal his wife's bangles, but also questions are about her relation to a villager who has accidentally entered the house. So this kind of a portrayal is also trying to convey that how the position of women in the patriarchal society was such that where questions were being raised at her. And we also find the duplicity in that sense, that how in this film the currency was being printed in the basement of a hospital which was titled as Daridra Narayan Shevashram. So the people, those who are engaging themselves in such kind of activities, they are not even leaving a hospital which is titled as Daridra Narayan Shevashram, and they are in a way printing the counterfeit currency even as such kind of places, and they are being engaging in all sorts of nefarious activities as well. We also find that how when we try to compare it with the bicycle thieves of DC Ka, how the use of a child as a moral eye which is opening towards the world, as you can see on the screen as well, that how the child not only sees the world in terms of black and white, right and wrong, but he also opens the villager's eye when he asks them to abandon his sphere, as he has not done anything wrong. So the climax scene in this particular film is through the eyes of a child, and the child is in a way trying or asking the villager to in a way abandon the kind of fear which he has, as he has not done anything wrong. So when we tend to understand the film in comparison to the bicycle thieves of DC Ka, where again there is the use of a child and how the child is acting as a moral eye in that particular film as well. So some kind of comparisons with the Italian films where the moral eye of a child is also being used by Raj Kapoor in this particular film as well. We also see that the films like Boot Polish, etc., which were being made by him, they were not offering any kind of a answer to the children, those who were destitute, and how these people, they were being oppressed by the mercenary, ruthless individuals, and how they were in a way also being trained to beg for their living. And but at the same time, the kind of social message which is being given in the film, that there was a need for a social change, and some sort of a equalitarianism was required in the society, so that the poor people are not poor and impoverished in that sense. And we also see that in one of the scenes in the film, the child protagonist says that मुझे रोज रोज भूख क्यों लगती है, why the child feels hungry every day. So the character replies that ये हमारे देश की सबसे बड़ी कमी है. So this is the biggest deficiency of our country, as if the natural process of hunger and its satisfaction is a sin or a crime. So such kind of dialogues, etc., they also raise the questions about what all is happening in the society as well. And we also talked about the film called Avara, which was talking about the heredity and environment debate. In that manner, another film called Parvarish, which was made in 1958 with Raj Kapoor and Mahmood, it also raises this idea of heredity and environment, and how the right environment and upbringing, it decides the fate of an individual. So this particular film also, in an entertaining manner, tries to convey this kind of an idea. And we also find that there was a fear of dacoits at that point of time, and how some of the politicians like Vinoba Bhave and Jayaprakash Narayan, they gave a call, and on their call so many dacoits, they surrendered to the police, and they were mainstream to the society in large. And this film called this Desh Mein Ganga Behti Hai was based on this particular theme, which was directed by Radhu Karmakar. And we also find that Raj Kapoor also made a film called Sangam in 1964, and in this film we also find that how the use of foreign locales for the on location shooting such was also being done, that how the song sequences, they were also being shot on the background of the exotic landscapes as well. Then apart from that, we also see that in a film Raj Kapoor also played a native bullock cart driver who falls in love with Wahida Rahman, who is a dancer at a Nautanki. And this particular film called Tisri Kasam deals with the issue of exploitation of women in performing arts, especially in travelling folk theatre. And another film which was later considered to be some sort of a classic, but it was not commercially successful when it was being made, was Mera Naam Joker in 1970. And we find that how Raj Kapoor's love with three different women at three different stages was shown in this film. And how Raju had a clown doll which belonged to his father, and how he is very close to that doll. So we find that this film was not at all successful, but later we find that this film was considered to be some sort of a classic, and how the doll is being used as a metaphor for Raj Kapoor's simplistic heart, where there is room for everyone. So the kind of fortunes in terms of money were revived when Raj Kapoor made a film called Bobby, and this film became very popular, and it became some sort of a trendsetter in its own right, and it introduced the genre of teenage romance. And we also find that how the rich poor clash was used as a backdrop in the film, and the issue of class, where the male protagonist is from a elite section of society and the girl is from a poor setup. And so this kind of a background was also being used, and later so many other films, they were also being made on such kind of themes as well. We also find that as the idea of the physical and the spiritual love, as it was shown in Barsat, was later also shown in a film called Satyam Shivam Sundaram. And the idea of male protagonist love for the outer beauty, and the main lead was played by Shashi Kapoor, and he rejects his wife whose one side of her face was damaged. The role was played by Zinat Aman. So this issue of inner versus outer beauty was discussed in Satyam Shivam Sundaram, and the final realization of the male protagonist that the inner beauty is more relevant in that sense, and how the songs in this particular film, they also became quite popular as well. Raj Kapoor continues with the idea of reform in a film called Prem Rog in 1982, which deals with the issue of how widows, they are being treated in the society, and how conservatives, they do not want that the age-old traditions and customs related to the women, they may not be changed, especially the issue of remarriage of widows. And so this kind of an idea was being talked about by Raj Kapoor in 1982. And again he challenges or criticizes the society in 1985's film Ram Teri Ganga Maili, and how it in a way also connects with the issue of corruption of the politicians as well as the capitalists. And it also tries to convey the nascent environmental initiatives which were taken in those times. And this film became controversial in that sense that it was being criticized for nudity as well. And later we find that Raj Kapoor was working on a film which he wanted to direct when he died, and this film later was directed by his son Ranbir Kapoor, in which we find Rishi Kapoor, Ashwini Bhave and Jeba Bakhtiar, who was from Pakistan. All of them, they acted, and this film was written by Abbas, and it was an Indo-Pak project in that sense, which was shot in Kashmir as well. And this was planned and started by Raj Kapoor, and dialogues by Pakistani Hasina Moin. So we find that this film, it was dealing with the issue of a mistaken straying of Rishi Kapoor into the Pakistani side of Kashmir due to a car accident, and how he which leads to amnesia, and how he is connected with Jeba Bakhtiar and falls in love with her and we also find that the controversial Indo-Pakistani tension on Kashmir, which leads him to be suspected by Pakistani police of being of an Indian spy. So this particular film was to be directed by Raj Kapoor, but Raj Kapoor did not direct it because he died before that. And later the songs of this particular film they became quite popular as well. So when we try to position or see Raj Kapoor, that the kind of cinema which he made, then we find that he was trying to connect with the society in a manner that he used various different kinds of stylistics, and at the same time he was very concerned with what was happening in the society as well. And that is how his films of 1940s and 50s, we find that they were, when they were being made immediately after independence, they were dealing with the issues of nation building. And we also find that the idea of nation building was there in the 1950s, and Raj Kapoor was also trying to position himself or trying to position his films in a manner that he was being able to contribute something to the society. And though he was working within a commercial framework, because films require a lot of money, and a lot of money is being invested in the films, and the filmmakers, they also have to recover that money, and it also has to reach to the masses. Unless the film is being seen by the people, the film is not successful. And the purpose of a filmmaker also gets defeated as well. So Raj Kapoor had that kind of a popular appeal, and he was able to use the songs in that manner that they became quite popular, and he was not able to achieve this kind of a status not in India only, but he was able to achieve this kind of a status abroad as well, that how he was being adored by the people of so many countries. So with this, I'd like to end the discussion. Thank you very much.